Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. We have a lot to talk about again this week. Innistrad Midnight Hunt has been completely revealed, at least the main set. We're still waiting to find out what's exactly in those commander decks. But because of those reveals, there's a number of cards moving in value this week. And again, there's a lot of other things happening in the market as well. Quickly before we get started though, just a fast reminder, if you go to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use that Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can pre-order Innistrad Midnight Hunt products there, and they also have a whole lot of other things on their website. Remember, if your order is over $100 or it consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. Also, whenever you use that promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated, so thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. We'll begin, as we always do, with the Standard Legal Spotlight. This is where we look at cards that are Standard Legal moving the most this week. And like we have been doing recently, $2 is the threshold for this video, so we're not going to talk about anything unless it's moving at least $2 up or down. Only one card to discuss in this section this week. Standard is pretty slow since rotation is about to happen. And that card is Trelane, Teller of Tales. It goes up 446 to 32.49, but this is the copy from the list that was only there during Zendikar Rising, and this price is still very inflated. So if you were to pick up this card, I'm sure you could find it much, much cheaper if you look around. The problem is this was egregiously market manipulated not too long ago, and because there's not many copies online at any given time, even though that market manipulation has calmed down, the asking prices are still all over the place because of that recent manipulation. Now, when it comes to gameplay, this is rotating out of Standard. It wasn't seeing a whole lot of Standard play, though, recently anyway. However, it is a great Commander card. You'll see this used as a Commander a lot of the time. Also can show up in the 99 of some builds, too. And that quickly takes us to the Pioneer Legal Spotlight. First, we have a couple cards going down in value. Finale of Devastation. This is down 232 to 44.99. Now, this is not seeing nearly as much modern play in this post-Modern Horizons 2 meta compared to before. This is in Golgari's Sacrifice a good amount of the time, but that's about it right now. You rarely see Devoted Devastation in this new meta. Much like the last card, though, it is still a very popular Commander card. It's in Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, and much more there. And next we have Icy Manipulator. This is the foil copy that comes in the Deckmasters Garfield vs. Finkel product. It is down 465 this week to 796. This spiked a few weeks ago when there was a lot of chatter on an MTG message board about these old foils. And you're going to see one still going up in value a little bit later in the video. Now when it comes to gameplay, this sees a little Commander play, but that's about it. Only one card going up in value this week. It is Arlinn Kord, up 374 to 1360. Great Commander Werewolf and Wolf support card found in Ulrich of the Krelin Horde builds and more. Obviously, this is hot because of the Werewolf and Wolf tribal support we have seen in these Innistrad Midnight Hunt previews. Here's a few examples. First, we have a Mythic Wolf, Primal Adversary. There's other support for wolves as well. Next, we have 5 werewolves at the rare spots, and I put the front portion of the cards on the top row and the back portion on the bottom row. Here's the ones I'm really interested in, though, in general. Arlinn, the Pax Hope, so we do have another Arlinn Planeswalker. The card on the right, Tovolar, Dire Overlord, is a Gruul legendary werewolf, so this can be your commander if you want it to be. And having an option like that is pretty exciting right now for players. As a matter of fact, Tolarian Community College put out a video this week talking about a commander build around that card. Some of the cards that were mentioned in that video you'll see here today. Additionally, some players are hoping to see a Pioneer or even Modern werewolf deck perform well in the future. Will that happen? Well, time will tell. That takes us to the Modern Legal Spotlight. First, we have some cards going down in value, and there's some pretty hot cards that are retracting this week. Chalice of the Void. Now, this is the copy from Masters 25. This week it's going down $358 to $79. However, you might remember a few weeks ago, this spiked pretty aggressively. Since then, it has been normalizing down to get closer in value to the other copies of the card. 2 other copies, as a matter of fact, are going up in value this week. You're going to see them a little bit later. Now, when it comes to gameplay, this has been a great Modern sideboard option for this current Modern meta. It is colorless, so it can fit into any deck you want to put it in. Plus, it gets Legacy, Vintage, and a little Commander play. Wheel of Sun and Moon is next, and this is another sideboard card that people tried out in Modern. This one not as successful, though, as Chalice of the Void. It goes down $371 this week to $30.57. Now, it can show up in the sideboard of something like Enchantress from time to time. This is an enchantment, so that's a bonus for that deck. However, for the most part, you're not really seeing this in many modern sideboards anymore. It does get a little commander play, though. Third verse, same as the first, Engineered Explosives from Fifth Dawn. This goes down $4.33 this week to $41. Yet another card that has been showing up in a lot of sideboards. It is colorless like Chalice of the Void. And this one has been pretty successful, but this is another example of a situation where one particular copy of the card spiked pretty aggressively recently, and since then has been normalizing down. In addition to the modern play it sees, this also gets a good amount of legacy and a little commander play. Fourth verse, same as the first, Fracturing Gust from Shadowmoor. This goes down $5.72 to $13.68. Recently, this was reprinted in the Showcase Strixhaven Secret Lair. However, so far we are 4 for 4. This is another modern sideboard card that a lot of people were trying out. Now it is cooling off. You will find this usually in the sideboard of Azorius Control and some other decks in the format. It is useful against Urza Saga, which is in a lot of builds. Also good against decks like Enchantress, or any deck leaning harder on artifacts like Hammer Time, for example. Additionally, this does see a little commander play as well. And the last card going down in value is Cavern of Souls from Ultimate Masters, another example of a card that spiked not too long ago, got ahead of the other versions of the card. Now it is starting to come down. This is down $12.06 this week to $102.92. Now it is worth pointing out that this did join the list with Keldheim, and it is still there. It's sticking around even into Innistrad Midnight Hunt. And even though the list doesn't do a great job of injecting any particular card in high quantities into the marketplace, when it keeps showing up set after set after set, you do have to pay attention to it. Keeping all that in mind, though, this is still seeing a ton of play. This is a huge card. Modern, it's in 5-color elementals, Amulet Titan, Eldrazi-tron, Spirits, Humans, Merfolk, Eldrazi, and Goblins. This also gets Legacy and Vintage play. Plus, you know this is a highly played commander card. It's in tons of different decks. Even seeing more play now in Dragon builds, which became popular with Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. This is in Tiamat, which is a newer build. Plus, this could be poised to see more play with the release of Innistrad Midnight Hunt. First off, we know Coven Counters is going to have a lot of humans. On the screen, you see Lenora Autumn Sovereign. This is the front-facing commander for that deck. And here's some other human support cards that you'll find. Sigarda, Champion of Light, I think is particularly interesting. Now that last card, Visions of Glory, I just want to point out, this is one of those cards you can only find in set boosters or collector boosters. This will not be in draft boosters, and it won't show up in your pre-con, for example. Aside from humans, and I guess, of course, werewolves, which we already talked about, we know we have a lot of zombies coming, too. On the screen, you see Wilhelt the Rock Cleaver. This is the front-facing commander for the Undead Unleashed commander deck. And here's some other zombie support cards you'll find in the main set. Champion of the Perished is especially interesting to me. That is the type of card that you won't probably only just see in Commander. Most likely, not only will it show up in standard decks, but probably Pioneer, maybe even Modern. If it is in Modern, you know it's going to see play with Cavern of Souls. And there's other tribes to look out for too. We have Spirit as well as Vampire support and even Ooze support in this set. Plus remember Crimson Vow, when that comes out not too long from now, that's going to have a big focus on vampires. And the two commander decks that come out with that product are called Spirit Squadron and Vampiric Bloodline. Sounds like there could be some pretty decent demands on Cavern of Souls for the future. Okay, here's those copies of Chalice of the Void I mentioned earlier. Modern Masters is up 204 to 73.44. The Time Spiral Remastered copy is up 288 to 74.99. Next we have Birds of Paradise. This was reprinted with the original art recently in the artist series Mark Pool's Secret Lair. It sees a lot of play in Modern. You'll find this in Yawgmoth's Sacrifice, Niv to Light, and more. Also get some Legacy play, but of course you know this is a huge commander card. It's in tons of builds there, old and new. The revised copy is up $245 this week to $33.43. The 7th edition copy is up $292 to $20.89. Next we have Brushland from 6th edition. This particular copy is a little dry online this week. It goes up $296 to $11.20. Now this is a great mana-based card in many commander decks, again old and new. Ren 6 from Modern Horizons is bouncing back a little bit after some losses. It goes up $327 this week to $120. Now this was recently on the list, but it did leave after Keldheim, so it has been a little while now. The reason the card softened up was because Wizards announced Double Masters 2022 would be coming out next year, and they showed art from this card, Ren 6, so it looks like it's going to be reprinted there. Now with that in mind, people tend to be impatient. If they need this card for a deck, they're going to go ahead and pay to pick it up. and this is in a lot of decks. Modern, you'll find this in Luris Jund, Indomitable Creativity, Naya Renegade Rallier, Scapeshift, Niv to Light, and more. This is banned in Legacy, but it does see some Vintage and Commander play. And prior to us finding out that it's going to be reprinted, we did see an Innistrad Midnight Hunt preview card that pushed this a little bit. And that card is Ren and 7. I could see these two getting along very well together in Commander, if nowhere else. Next we have a Boro Palace in the Clouds, and this is rebounding after a pretty big loss last week. It comes up 446 to 89.39. Now this does see play in Modern Mill and Merfolk. Also see some Commander play. The reason I think it dipped last week is because Wizards announced that next year we are returning to Kamigawa in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Now I don't really think they'll necessarily put this in the main set, but if they decide to do some kind of subset with reprints from the Kamigawa block, or perhaps they could just stick this in the list, then it is possible that more copies could be coming in the future. I do feel like this is overdue for a reprint. Back to Werewolves, we have Huntmaster of the Fells. This is up 8.17 this week to 29.99. Now currently, this is already in Ulrich of the Krellin Horde Werewolf Commander decks. And as you know, this is going up because of the Werewolf tribal support we discussed earlier. This also happens to be one of the cards that was in that Tolarian Community College video, talking about a Tovolar Commander deck. And finally in this section, we have Master of the Wild Hunt. Magic 2010 up 886 to 1995. Masters 25 up 1264 to 2374. And we did find out that this is going to be added to the list with Innistrad Midnight Hunt. So there are more copies coming, although it might take a little time for them to truly get into the marketplace. Now, aside from that, as you could imagine, this is moving because of Innistrad Midnight Hunt previews, and again, because of the support for the Wolf Tribe. And currently, you do see this in some Ulrich Commander builds, among others. It's also been in some builds around a newer card, Varys Silvery Moon Ranger. And that takes us to the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we talk about cards that see play in Legacy, Vintage, 93, 94, or cards that are just popular among collectors right now. And yes, there is still market manipulation happening in this Vintage market, but nowhere near as much as we were seeing a number of months ago, which is good news. The one thing, though, I do want to keep reminding everybody, when you look at card prices for vintage cards, remember many times, depending on the card, how old it is, how iconic it is, the price you're seeing is a mixture between high-grade raw and high-grade graded cards. So if you go to a price tracking website and the card price looks a little high, that could be what's going on there. Also, the prices you see in this section are going to be very reflective of what you might see on a price tracking website. So if the price isn't really towards the middle between high-grade raw and high-grade graded copies, I will point that out to you, or if there's any other shenanigans going on. Demonic Attorney. This is the copy from Revised that goes up 206 to 1099, pretty much not legal anywhere, but still a card that collectors want in high grade. Here's that other early foil I mentioned earlier. This is Necropotence. It is from Deckmasters Garfield vs. Finkel. Only came in foil there. It goes up 884 to 144.83. And when it comes to gameplay, of course, this is in Vintage Doomsday, and it gets a lot of Commander play, too. Here's another card that got a reprint in that Artist Series Mark Poole Secret Lair with the original art. This is Counterspell from Unlimited. It goes up 1060 this week to 94.49. Mana Crypt, the original media book giveaway promo, is up 1108 to 383.09. This gets a lot of vintage play and a lot of Commander play in builds old and new. It is worth noting that Convention Mystery Booster boxes recently were sent out to game stores. That did bring more copies of this card into the marketplace, but collectors still want this original. Grim Monolith is up 1220 this week to 365. In Legacy, this is Incarn Echoes. Also a good Commander card and combo enabler in many builds. Rock Hydra from Unlimited. You're going to see a lot of Unlimited cards moving up again this week. It goes up 1291 to 107.14. Mishra's Factory. This is the Antiquity Summer variant that you see on the screen. It is up 1496 this week to 168.95. Fungusaur from Unlimited. This card's been on this list a lot recently. It's up 1560 to $94. Revelation from Legends. It goes up $20.19 to 149.99. Blaze of Glory from Unlimited. It's up 24.41 to 139.93. Volcanic Island from Revised is up 25.27 to 864.50. Gaia's Cradle from Urza Saga. This is up 25.35 to $999. Now this has been trending down recently. This week it does jump back up, however. Legacy, you'll find this in Elves, Maverick, 4-color Loam. Vintage, it's in Hollowvine. Great Commander card in numerous builds as well. Kamal Ghul up $29.99 to $284.99. Shivan Dragon from Unlimited up $31.50 to $247.50. Castle from Unlimited. Now this price does seem a little inflated to me. It's going up in theory $31.59 to $39.99. Now when you look at high-grade raw copies, they sell for about $13 at most. I haven't seen any high-grade graded copies sell recently, but you don't typically see a ton of graded copies of this selling normally anyway. Now if one were to sell, maybe it could get to this price point, perhaps even a little higher. Savannah Lions from Unlimited up $65 this week to $304.99. The Unlimited copy of Gaia's Liege, and another card that feels inflated to me. In theory, it's going up $84.89 to $116.77. However, high-grade raw copies are selling for about $30, and I haven't seen any high-grade graded copies sell for quite some time. Again, maybe if one were to sell, it could get a little closer to this price point. And here's another one that feels inflated to me. Rasputin Dreamweaver, it's up $87.52 in theory to $699.95. High-grade raws are selling for about $300. High-grade graded for about $500. Pyramids, this one is up $92.98 to $492.98. Tundra, 2 copies here. Revised is up $475 to $560.15. And Unlimited is up $167.51 to $1,047.50. And that takes us to the Commander Spotlight. This is also kind of like the best of the rest. For the most part, all the cards in this section are moving, at least in part because of Commander. There are going to be cards that see a little Commander play that could be moving more so because of Modern, or maybe just because collectors are picking them up or there was a buyout. But let's go ahead and jump in and see what's happening. Cloudstone Curio from Ravnica, City of Guilds. It goes up $202 to $54.99. This is a popular Commander card and combo enabler. It has seen some increased play recently in Volo Guide to Monsters builds. Food Chain, the copy from the list, it was there through Kjell time. It goes up $203 this week to $63.75. Of course, you'll find this in Legacy Food Chain, but it is another good Commander card and combo enabler and builds old and new. Earthquake, this is the one from Portal's Second Age. Now, this has been reprinted many times. You're not going to see other copies of this moving all that much, but this one is harder to find online in good condition, and it is jumping up $210 to $499. And I do think that movement is an indicator of the fact that more players want this card for Commander. It has been a great Commander card for a while, but it is seeing more play now in Dragon builds like the Dragon or Tiamat. This also got a Command Zone mention this week as a card that you might want to put in some new builds around Innistrad Midnight Hunt cards. The cards they mentioned in particular are the 2 on the screen, Remkarlis Stalwart Slayer and Vadrik Astral Archmage. Berserk from Conspiracy Take the Crown. This is in Legacy, in fact, also gets some Commander play in Marwyn the Nurturer and more. This goes up $215 to $38.36. Mayor of Averbrook. This is up $217 to $10.20. Currently, this is another card you'll find often in Ulrich decks and Commander. Of course, this is being pushed because of the Innistrad Midnight Hunt previews we looked at earlier. And this is another card that was in that Tolarian Community College video discussing that Tovolar Commander build. Sliver Queen. Now this is the Sliver Lord that is on the reserve list. It can be found in Commander Sliver decks, sometimes as the Commander. It has been ticking up slowly ever since some recent losses. This week it goes up $219 to $378.40. Fire and Ice. This original Apocalypse copy has been hot. It goes up $231 this week to $692. I would expect it maybe to start cooling off pretty soon. Now this gets a little Commander play, but Modern is moving this the most right now. It's in Crashing Footfalls, Is It Control, Scapeshift, and more there. Gets a little Legacy play too. Urza, Lord High Artificer from Modern Horizons, up $233 to $58.19. This was reprinted as a Modern Horizons 1 retro frame card in Modern Horizons 2, but you might remember those only came in foil or etch foil, so they were difficult pulls, and a lot of people still prefer the non-foil copy. With that being said, though, I do think we see a reprint of this perhaps next year. There is the Brothers War set coming at the end of the year, and again, I don't think they're going to make this standard legal, but maybe there's a reprint subset. Maybe it just shows up on the list perhaps, but regardless, I do think this is going to be somewhere. Beyond all that, though, this could be getting a little bump right now from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, considering there are some cards that use Investigate in the set. Overall, though, this is a popular Commander, and it's in the 99 of a number of builds there. It's even seen a little more play in that format recently as an upgrade to Ore of Courage, one of the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms Commander decks. Others are putting this in fresh builds around a card from there, Galia, Kindler of Hope. In Modern, maybe it's not seeing as much play there as it was a number of months ago before Modern Horizons 2, but it's still in Jeskai Wurza. In Legacy, kind of the same story, seeing less play, but it is still being used, and it's still pretty common in Vintage as well. Devoted Caretaker, this continues to be a little dry online. It's up 237 this week to 849. It does see a little commander play, but this is a human cleric with a pretty good ability, and I do think it could see more commander play in the future considering the human support we are getting in Innistrad Midnight Hunt. And remember, we haven't seen the contents yet of the 2 commander decks. Coven Counters will have a number of humans. Does this get reprinted there? Who knows? Lurking Predators, this is the copy from Commander 2016. It goes up 261 to 1087. Recently, dragon builds like the Ur-Dragon have seen more commander play, and many times this is in there. Now, though, there are some players speculating that this could be good in future werewolf or maybe even human builds. Here's another card that you might see in future commander werewolf or maybe some vampire builds, perhaps. This is Savage Beating. It goes up 265 to 1869. And this was also another card that was in that Tolarian Community College Tovolar Commander video. Now, when it comes to recent gameplay, aside from the speculation, this has been seeing a little more commander play. It has been picked up by many players as an upgrade to Draconic Rage, or put in fresh builds around Wolfgar of Icewind Dale. Flooded Strand, the original one from Onslaught, it's up 283 to 9923 this week. Like most fetch lands, this is in many different decks in Modern, Legacy, and Vintage. Plus, it's a huge commander mana-based card too in decks old and new. Daybreak Ranger, this is up 285 to 432, and this is another card that you will currently find in Ulrich Commander Werewolf decks. However, I'm sure it's going to see even more play in the future because of the werewolf support coming from Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Death Coil Worm up 350 this week to 1949. This is yet to be reprinted. It is a little dry online right now. Like I said last week, this tends to be pretty cyclic, moving up and then back down when copies are added online. It does get a tad bit of commander play, though. Aggravated Assault. We saw the Onslaught copy moving last week. This week, the Explorers of Ixalan copy is up 456 to 3819. This has seen more play in Commander Dragon builds. Good upgrade to Draconic Rage again. Also in new builds around some cards from there. Wolfgar of Icewind Dale and Clouth Unrivaled Ancient. This also plays well with another new card, Old Gnawbone. Plus, it is possible that we will see this card more in future werewolf and vampire builds in the Commander format. It was on that Tolarian Community College video talking about Tovolar again. Additionally, this got a mention on the Command Zone podcast as well as a card you might want to put in a build around a new card from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, and that is Florian Valderan Scion. Survival of the Fittest from Exodus. It's up 532 to 274.95. This continues to tick up after some recent losses. It is found in a number of different commander builds. Lake of the Dead, this is up 601 to 115.99. Now, this isn't too surprising because this card has been losing a lot of value over the last 6 months. Once it got close to the $100 mark, I think some people decided it could be time to pull the trigger. But another thing to point out, Saldevi Excavations recently was the target of a pretty public buyout. This could be moving in response to that. Many times when one reserve list alliance's land jumps, others start to follow. This does get some commander play, though. Saldevi Excavations, how about that transition? This goes up 634 to 34.49. And yeah, this does see a little commander play, but really moving because of the buyout I just mentioned. Curse of Vengeance, this is up 682 this week to 1047. Now, currently, this gets a little commander play. But remember, there are some new curses coming in Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Here's some examples on the screen. But most importantly, we're getting a new legendary creature that interacts with curses. That is Lind, Cheerful Tormentor, and this is another one of those cards you can only find in set boosters or collector boosters. I have to point out, too, that she's cursing the unluckiest Planeswalker, which is kind of awesome. Now, when it comes to building a cursed commander deck around this card, I do think a lot of players will want to try it out because it could be fun. Typically, the downside to playing a lot of curses is when you put them on a player and that player leaves the game, then they go to your graveyard. However, with this card, you're taking a risk. They actually move back to you, and then once per turn, you can move one of those to someone else. Now, how good will that be? Well, time will tell. You'd have to have a lot of support for it, I think. What makes Curse of Vengeance particularly interesting, though, is because it was in Commander 2016. It's never been reprinted, so it is harder to find than most other curses. On top of that, it could work in an interesting way with this card, because if you put that curse on yourself, and you had a way to cast a lot of spells, maybe just a lot of cheap spells or some kind of loop or shenanigans going on, then you could get a lot of spike counters on it before you move it to another player. Maybe over time that could offset some of the things the other curses are doing to you. Regardless, though, I would keep a close eye on curse prices in the coming weeks. Edgar Markov from Commander 2017. This is only found in foil. It goes up 939 to 69.24. This is finally getting a reprint, but it is as a judge foil, so there's not going to be a ton of copies flooding the market or anything like that. It does feel like it is overdue for a broader reprint, however. I'm sure at some point we will see something. It is a very popular Vampire Tribal commander, as you know, and we have seen some Vampire Tribal support in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, but of course the main event is going to be Innistrad Crimson Vow, and that Vampiric Bloodline commander deck that comes out with it. And on top of all that, there is speculation that Edgar could be the character that is getting married to Olivia in Crimson Vow. Tombstone Stairwell. This goes up $10.05 to $45.99. This currently gets a little commander play, but this is a reserve list card that can, for a time, create a lot of zombie tokens. It does give opponents tokens as well, but this is a pretty big reserve list spec because of Innistrad Midnight Hunt previews. We talked about zombie support earlier, but the most interesting interaction is between this and the front-facing commander for Undead Unleashed. You might remember that was Wilhelt the Rock Cleaver. At the end of any turn or when this leaves play, the tokens it created go away. However, with Wilhelt in play, your tokens will be replaced with zombie tokens with decay. Throw in some sack outlets, and this could be a pretty good combo in Commander. Catalyst Stone, this is up $13.05 to $14.99, and it is jumping because of the flashback support coming in Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Let's look at just a few examples. There are a lot of flashback cards in the set. First, we have some monocolor rares on the screen. Here's a whole bunch of multicolor rare cards with flashback. And there's even a cycle you can only find in set boosters and collector boosters. We already saw the white one earlier in the video. Here's the other 4. But I think the most interesting card and the one that's pushing Catalyst Stone the most is this one here. Lear, Disciple of the Drowned. This is a legendary creature that gives each instant and sorcery in your graveyard flashback equal to its mana cost, and it shuts down all counterspells, including yours though. This could make for some interesting commander interactions with Catalyst Stone, or maybe even a Legacy or Vintage Storm deck, who knows. Again though, that limited supply of Catalyst Stone being a card that's never been reprinted is why it moved as quickly as it did. Maybe we'll see a reprint at some point in the future. Speaking of good Storm cards, here's Wheel of Fortune from Revised. It's up $20 to $417.99. Now, this is in a number of different commander builds already, as you know, but it did get a Command Zone podcast mention this week as a card you might want to put in 2 different builds based around a couple Innistrad Midnight Hunt preview cards. The builds they mentioned were Florian Valdarin Scion and Rem Karlis Stalwart Slayer. And that takes us to the premium spotlights, and like I say every week, there's just too many cards moving in the premium market to talk about them all. There is a lot of market manipulation out there, so you do have to be careful. In these videos, I try to give you a little taste at least of what's happening in the market. I choose cards that aren't just drying up temporarily or being targeted for buyouts. I try to pick things that are relevant to what's going on this week. Today we have 3 cards to talk about, and much like in the Vintage Spotlight section, the prices you see on the screen are going to be very similar to what you might see on a price tracking website. But again, if true sales aren't lining up with those prices, I'll let you know. First, we have Catalyst Stone. This is the Odyssey foil. It's up $50.03 to $64.99. Sales are already breaking $40, and most sellers are asking for more, as reflected by the price you see on the screen. This could climb some more since the non-foil is jumping so quickly. Grim Monolith, that Urza's Legacy foil, is up $171.18 this week to $4,171.17. I have seen high-grade copies raw sell for about $2,700. I have not, however, seen any high-grade graded copies sell for a while. I could see one in the future, though, selling for around this price point. Gaia's Cradle, that Judge foil, is up $411.92 this week to $3,412.78. Very similar story here to the previous card. I have seen high-grade raw copies sell for about $28.50. I have not seen high-grade graded copies sell for a little while, but again, I could see one going for around this price point, maybe even a little more. Alright, that's going to do it for this episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. If you stuck with me to the end, thanks for being here. As always, hey, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.